We're good to go? All right. Welcome, everybody, to Season 3, Episode 2 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We have a very interesting show today. Today, we're going to be talking about life after September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. We are going to dive into the whole conversation and talk about how life is, or how life been with us in our lives, in everybody's lives, specifically Muslims' lives after the attacks. I want to introduce everybody that's here today. First of all, shout out to little big bro Yusuf Thabit. He's in the back, of course, being the engineer, doing the ones and twos as he always does. To the right of me, you got my sister Sada Thabit. Also to the right of me, you got my other sister, Abir Thabit. And then, of course, you got myself, Omar T. And then to the left of me, all right, we have our guest today, who is an attorney, Mo Abdrabboh. He is a brother of Omar, who we've had on the show numerous of times here, and also was there at the Dearborn High versus Fortson game that we live streamed. So can you please give him a round of applause? Mo Abdrabboh, he's in the building today. And so, he, like I said, he's here today to share some very insightful information about some of the things that has happened specifically right after the attacks and even leading up to today. So we're going to definitely dive into that conversation. Looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I know he has some even, did you bring the documentation or anything like that or no? Or
It's so old, the digital.
Yeah.
I couldn't open it.
Okay.
And some of the documentation, I realized a lot of it was blacked out, but I'm happy to discuss it.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss it, like he said. And so whatever it may be, we're going to definitely dive into it. If you're at home and you are watching, be sure to follow us on all of our pages. YouTube, Oz Media. You can follow us on social media, Facebook under Oz Media, Instagram and TikTok under Oz Media. If you want to listen to the show later, we'll be streaming live. You can listen to it later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. If you're at home and if you want to call in, the number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. Got to give a shout out to our sponsors, the Balkan House Restaurant, Juice Box, Qahwah House, BC Adhesives, Specialty Medical Center, and Hanley International Academy. Yusuf, let's start off with the Specialty Medical Center. We appreciate, Yusuf and Mother and everything that they do over there. These guys, they have two locations. They have one in Dearborn and one in Sterling Heights. So shout out to Specialty Medical Center. And then once we're done with that, we'll get the show on the road. So shout out to Specialty Medical Center. All right, Yusuf. So, the other day I was playing basketball with my friends, doing what I usually do on the court. But as I was driving to the lane, I kind of hurt my knee.
Oh, man, not again.
Yeah, but this time I knew which place to go to that would take care of me the best. And that is Specialty Medical Center. Specialty Medical Center is a medical center that prides itself on patient care and its rehabilitation services. Their primary focus is developing a customized treatment plan unique to each individual patient's needs. Their center offers a full range of patient care, from diagnostic testing, pain management, physical therapy, regenerative medicine solutions, and surgical care. They currently have two locations, one in Dearborn and one in Sterling Heights. So if you're looking for a place that treats your medical needs the best, be sure to stop by Specialty Medical Center.
There's a bunch of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, they're definitely deep. All right. So like I said, today's topic, basically, we're going to talk about life after September 11, 2001. We're going to talk about it in general, but then we're going to dive into it specifically for Muslims. All right. So, but there's a first thing that I also want to say before we get this started. For those of you that are at home, if you're watching live or you're eventually watching, all right, the September 11 attacks, commonly known as 9/11, were four coordinated Islamic suicide terrorist attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda against the United States on Tuesday, September 11, 2001. That morning, 19 terrorists hijacked four commercial airliners scheduled to travel from the New England and Mid-Atlantic regions of the East Coast to California. The hijackers crashed the first two planes into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, two of the world's five largest buildings at the time, tallest buildings, and aimed the next two flights toward targets in or near Washington, D.C. in an attack on the nation's capital. The third team succeeded in crashing into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Arlington County, Virginia, while the fourth plane crashed in rural Pennsylvania following a passenger revolt. The attacks killed nearly 3,000 people and instigated the multi-decade global war on terror. We at this panel do not condone these attacks, and we were in shock from these attacks just as anyone else living in the United States of America. Today, like I mentioned, we are here to talk about the attacks from our perspective, as well as the life for Muslims after these attacks. On the show today is, like I mentioned, Mo Abdrabboh, and this person that we brought on the show today isn't just someone that lived in America after these attacks, okay? So Mo Abdrabboh has been recognized as a leader in the civil rights community because of his outreach to victims of racial profiling and employment discrimination throughout the United States. He co-founded Ayed and Abdrabboh PLLC in 2001 to provide legal services to individuals experiencing a variety of legal issues after the September 11th attacks. His extensive community involvement was recognized by the National American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, ADC, which awarded him the Pro Bono Attorney of the Year Award in 2002. The following year, Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm appointed Abdrabboh to the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, where he served 6 years, including 1 year as chairman. He also served as a state board member of the American Civil Liberties Union and an accredited representative to the United Nations. Commission on Human Rights. He also has testified before a United States Senate Judicial Committee led by Senator Ted Kennedy. So please go ahead and give a round of applause to our guest today, Mo Abdrabboh. That was a lot of reading. That was a lot of reading. But I just wanted to make sure that people at home understood what it is that we're talking about and who it is that we brought on the show, and it's not just an ordinary person. So Mo, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, outside of maybe the profession, if you want to share that with us, and then we kind of get the show started.
First of all, thank you for the kind introduction, and I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'm very happy to be here to discuss what I think is an important topic, especially for younger people that, may have been children or not even born, some of them. I think it's important because a lot of those things have shaped the world we live in today. As far as me, I went to Dearborn High School, proud graduate, Dearborn High. As you said, I'm a kind of a local product, if you will. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a period of time. I've lived in Dubai. I've lived in Palestine. I've lived in different places over the years, but I consider myself, a Dearborn guy. I practice law now. I brought both of my nieces. We just came from basketball practice.
So coaching as well.
Coaching as well. Yep, that's something new. And like I said, I'm just happy to be here to discuss what I think is a pretty serious topic that impacts our community.
By the way, a D1 athlete in basketball. Attended University of Detroit Mercy. Also played some pro ball overseas. Mashallah. I watch Mo, and like I said, his brother Omar. They beat down on the younger fellas, if you want to say that, right? They definitely are on the court, and they do an awesome job. And, much respect to these guys. And they're very well-mannered, humble individuals. They don't really talk much about, like, the other day I was talking to Omar, and I was like, man, I never knew you were on ESPN, and they had a whole segment about him, after the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Yeah, so, like, they followed him, I guess, for, like, a week.
They did.
And so ESPN did, and they kind of, just followed him just to see how life is like for Muslims. And, Dearborn High, her son goes to Dearborn High as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so
He's a freshman,
just
nice.
started. So, yeah, for sure.
Plays basketball, too.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, so we got Bash saying Heart, and then Bessam Gobar said Big Mo, mashallah, great guy. So, you got some of the league members are tuning in right now too, all right?
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a conversation that not only are we going to get facts, but we also want to hear everybody's story, right? So Sada, you were about 4 years old, okay?
5. I was counting while you were talking.
Okay, so I'll start off with you, Sada. How much do you remember the day of the attack? Like, where were you? What was happening? What do you remember exactly?
I remember I was, I was in kindergarten, so we started late. So we didn't start school yet. So I was home, and I was eating cereal. I was watching TV, and my dad comes down. I'm like, my mom's in the kitchen or whatever, and my dad comes down. He's like, oh my God, America's going down. And he's literally like, and my mom was like, what's going on? And then they're upstairs watching Al Jazeera. Yeah, Al Jazeera. And I'm like, what's going on? But I didn't know much. When we did go back to school, everything else was a blur. It didn't really affect me at that time when I was young. I didn't feel any type of way or anything like that. But again, I was 5 years old, so that's really all I remember.
I think you were what, in 6th grade?
I was in 6th grade.
Okay,
yeah.
so what was your experience like? You were at the moment at Kishishko Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the situation going on there?
I remember I was in Mr. Newton's class. He was a math teacher. And I remember we were in the portables outside, and they got on the PA and they said everybody needs to go home. They didn't. You saw the teachers talking. We were all trying to, eavesdrop or whatever, but no one told us anything at school. They literally just said everybody needs to go home. You need to call your parents. Get home. And then as soon as we got home, that's when we actually found out what was happening. But being in the Hamtramck community, I feel like they didn't show us that much of. We didn't get that much of a negative feedback from the teachers, or impact. But my cousins in New York, like they didn't go to school for like 2-3 weeks. Like a lot of girls that I knew about at that time, like their families wanted them to take off their hijab so they could look normal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but we lived in Hamtramck, and it was a very populated, like Yemeni people, Muslim people, Bosnians, Bengali. So I feel like obviously there's racism, but during that time it wasn't like that big of a shock. We were afraid. We were worried about how people
Our country too. Like, we were afraid for America.
Like my dad literally thought we were getting it kicked out.
Yeah.
Like Baba was just like, oh, that's why I built a house in Yemen. That's what But we're natural born citizens, so I mean, minus my dead mom, but.
Yeah, for me, I was in 4th grade, and I remember my teacher, she was Polish, Miss Rogowski. So she, I remember she came into the classroom crying at that time.
And she's a tough
lady. That's why I was scared. Like, I'm telling you, like, because the stories that they used to tell me, so it was the beginning of the school year. I already had her for like a good week, so I kind of already knew how she was. But off the stories that they used to tell me, they used to scare me, by the way, about her. Like she's a tough-nosed teacher, very great teacher, by the way. She's one of my favorite teachers of all time. But she started crying, and I'm like, what is going on? And then she dragged in the cart, with the TV on it, and turned on the channel. And lo and behold, we were watching it live, and the news reporter was breaking news, America's under attack. And as he was talking, I remember at that moment that even the second plane then ended up hitting on the other tower, the second tower. And that's when Mr. Nichai, the old principal at Dickinson East Elementary, made an announcement and basically said that everybody needs to go home. And I'm like, what is going on? Like everybody's just confused. And I remember she was crying.
We didn't know when it was going to end.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the situation. We didn't know what was, that's what was happening at that moment.
That's really interesting how
Was that rain or was that the AC?
Oh, it's rain.
Oh, okay.
Rain. It's really interesting that, he was a 4th grader, but, she brought the TV in to have them see what's going on. And then you were saying that you didn't even know what was going on.
Literally, they were calling our parents from, inside the classrooms. Like, we walked out from the portables. Like, we couldn't even go back to our lockers. They were like, go home.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, everybody couldn't go anywhere. They were just sending everybody home, calling parents, obviously, to come pick them up, the kids, that is. So... that's kind of our experience afterwards. And the only thing I remember the next day is when I went to school, and I remember I was talking to a student, and it was a girl, and she basically was like, it was a group of us, but she was like, yeah, your people did it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it wasn't. And then she was like, yeah, they were Arabic, and she said it like that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I really, because it was still a lot of stuff up in the air at that moment, but you almost felt guilty in a way just by being, who you were because of what happened and stuff like that. But how about you, man? I know you were probably into your career around that time, or?
Yeah, so I had just turned 28 years old. I had passed the bar recently. I was just at the very beginning of my legal career, and just kind of the way fate would have it, I was actually in the air from Detroit to Chicago. And when I first started practicing law, I kind of focused on 2 areas. I did a little bit of criminal. I did a lot of immigration, like defense of people being deported. And so I was going to Chicago to have a trial. I was representing a Palestinian guy who was claiming political asylum. So when I landed and we were driving to downtown Chicago on Michigan Avenue where the immigration offices were, it's like a day I'll never forget, because I remember seeing people in the bagel shop, like looking at the TV. It wasn't like nowadays where everyone's on their phone.
Yeah.
And I didn't think much of it because I was kind of focusing and nervous for an asylum hearing. And then when we got to the floor of the immigration, I remember it was weird. The door was shut and I'm knocking on the door and a guy came out like like with his hand behind his back, kind of rude. He's like, "Can I help you?" And I thought to myself, like, am I in the wrong place? And I said, I have a hearing today. And I'll never forget it. He said, no, you don't. And I said, yes, I do. I had my notice. And he's like, we've been attacked by terrorists. I was kind of confused. And here's what he said. This is a federal agent, by the way. He said, they flew planes into the White House and your hearing is canceled. So, but we went downstairs. By the time I got downstairs, I walked in to see people. Everyone's standing. But it was really kind of quiet for Chicago. It had a different vibe. And by the time we got inside, it was in between the first airplane and the second. We saw the second airplane hit. My mom worked for Delta at the time. And Northwest, I think it was called back then. And I just remember her calling saying, you better hurry up and get home because they're going to close the airport down. And then you can kind of see, like after the second one, people trying to get out quickly. So I just remember I couldn't get a train. I couldn't get a bus.
Oh, my God.
Couldn't rent a car. And the airport was shut down. I couldn't get anything. So it's crazy. I actually, my brother had to drive from Detroit to Chicago to pick us up. And so, he picked us up and we're driving. And that's the first time in my life I heard the name Rush Limbaugh because we were listening to the radio. And all I remember, like it was yesterday, is Muslims are the new enemy, and like the whole ride home. And I remember like talking to my brother thinking, wow, this is crazy. This is before they officially said who it was. I just remember thinking, I just hope it's not Muslims.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
That's crazy. Like, that's what all of us were thinking. Like, we sat there and you hear the day of, like the night, I remember the radio, obviously every radio station was talking about it, and like you kind of hear them talking about it, and like sadly it's like we're sitting there, obviously you feel bad for the victims and the families, and then the next thing is you sit there and you say like you hope it's not Muslims because we know where that's gonna go if that was the case, and then I don't know when they officially made the statement of that,
like
who
the same
it was.
day.
Yeah,
I feel like it was the same,
like 1
like at
o'clock?
nighttime.
It was later that day.
I thought it was like nighttime though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there was a lot of reports
Yeah.
early on, but I think it was like unanimous, like later that day. But if within a few hours they were saying, but some groups took credit for it. If you guys might not remember, that didn't do it. Like there are groups overseas that says we did it.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
Yeah, I think I do remember that.
Yeah,
They
but
just want to be the ones that got to.
the credit for it. But yeah, it was kind of unanimous by that evening as to who did it.
What was your reaction afterward? Like, were you thinking the same thing? Like, you hope it wasn't Muslims, or like
100%. I mean, till this day, I want some type of report to say that it really wasn't, or something. You know what I'm saying? I still have that hope. But it was weird because when we finally found out it was Muslims, I'm like, just like, why would they do that? You know how you're just like, what? Like, it made you question a couple things. Like, that's not how Muslims are supposed to be. So it made me even be afraid. Like, it gave me, made me a little bit, I don't want to say racist, but a little bit afraid of, like, Afghanistani people. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we were young. Our brains are still developing. We didn't have, the right information at the time. We're going to believe anything that we kind of hear. We're trying to, like, figure it out. But, as you get older, you find out things and you look.
was it just Afghani? I thought it was a Saudi. Was it Saudi too, or what was like the final report?
It was It was the official report, like the 9/11 Commission that published the book. They said that 15 out of the 19 were from Saudi.
Yeah.
And I think there was Yemen and I don't remember the nationalities. Maybe Tunis. There was a couple of them were mixed. I think that there was actually an Emirati in the group, but 15 out of the 19 were Saudi nationals.
And you see how, like, me not being as knowledgeable, like I automatically thought because Afghanistan, because that's where he was. You know what I'm saying? So like you can just see.
Well, they said that they got training out of Afghanistan, so that's probably where you're thinking of.
And now, if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. and Saudi are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of interesting stuff. But it's something that I would never have thought, and like even afterwards, like I said, like we were talking about, like I definitely was hoping that Muslims were not even years later, man, after every attack, you would be like, I hope it's not Muslims. I hope it's not Muslims.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
what it-
we
yeah.
didn't want to like deal with that again, or go through those same situations. And, more times than not, when you hear the word terrorist, it was associated with Muslims even afterwards. So
The crazy thing is when you ask students, sometimes the younger ones, like, what is a terrorist? They automatically think it's an Arabic person.
Yeah.
Because whenever there's in any other race, they'll profile them as a different name. Usually it's not used as terrorist.
So before we move on to the next question, I want to read off a couple ones. So Wahabi, my man Mo, dropping triple doubles left and right, mashallah. Qamar said salam, hello beautiful people. Then Mo T said, looking good guys. Shout out to my middle school football coach, Leo Wells. He was in 8th grade Moti at the time, correct?
Yeah.
Gave us a hell of a speech about unity and togetherness. He said, what happened today doesn't represent your brothers here.
Why didn't you
that
call
was really
in?
nice.
Moti could have gave us that speech, but it's
Yeah.
okay. Shout out to Moti. We appreciate him. And so my next question to you all is, what has life been like after September 11? And so we'll save it for you because I know you got like a lot of facts and a lot of stuff. So I bet I'll start off with you on this one. Has your life changed after that moment, or at least from people you may know as well?
I feel like for the most part, it's the airport. Like for me, thankfully, like I know this is kind of going against the grain here, but just being from Hamtramck, I feel like we learned how to adapt to different cultures and be more open and not take things like offensively. I went to Madonna University, which is, predominantly like Catholic, but I had a scholarship. So, but a lot of the girls at first, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, they didn't ask me to be like their partner, or they weren't really friendly. And it was not until I actually spoke and I shared my opinions and they noticed I was smart. You know what I'm saying? So, I do notice a little bit once I got out of Hamtramck, a little bit of, like racism or just like not wanting to include me. But once I show my personality and I create a safe space for them to ask questions and not get offended, I feel like, it worked out for the better. But for sure in the airport, I'm always pulled to the side. Sometimes it's rude or it's awkward, or we were put in, different situations that are not comfortable. But to be like, I wouldn't say it's like a huge difference, but there's instances that make me feel that way.
How about you, Sada?
I second that. Minus, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very thankful. My name is Sarah too, so it's pretty easy for it to be like, and I could be anything else. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think nothing has changed in a sense. I was very sheltered because like I stayed in Hamtramck for the longest too, and like all the schools, we were multicultural. I went to Wayne State, that was multicultural. So I never really, even if I did put in a situation, I don't think it was because of 9/11. It's just It's just if somebody wants to be rude, they're gonna be rude. But yeah. So and it makes me honestly think that like I wonder how racist or how the world was prior to that. Because again, I was 5 years old, so I really didn't know. So maybe if you guys could touch on that, that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Mo's about to hit us with a lot of facts. I already know he has a lot of probably cases that he dealt with. Oh my goodness. I know your brother Omar was talking to me about it. For me, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and act like that. I dealt with a lot of racist situations as well. Like she said, we grew up in Hamtramck, so we grew up in a multicultural city, and we were really sheltered in a way. It was a lot of Muslims, Muslim majority in a way now as well. So it wasn't like that. I went to school in East Lansing. It was a little different, but I ended up living with a bunch of Americans, and we kind of grew up together, and like we enjoyed it, and very open-minded people, individuals. And like Abid was saying, like once they get to know you, they look past that stuff, and you kind of grow a brotherhood. But it definitely was not the case for everyone else. So can you, from your experience, and then maybe some of the stuff that you can dive into in terms of like cases and stuff like that, like how was life different for Muslims after September 11?
So, these young ladies, they were children, so it's a different perspective, right? I was kind of like at the beginning of my career and, 28 years old. So I would like my personal reaction first. I was offended. This is something you guys could relate to today, that like as a Muslim, we were responsible for what they did. Because in my mind, it's like holding white people accountable for what skinheads do, right? Or it's like a racist who claims they're Christian, holding Christianity responsible for what that racist did. That's ignorant, because I know that the majority of Christians don't do that. So, like, for me personally, I was like, you know, part of me was offended. And then, like, reality started to set in. So, like, the reality is my name is Muhammad. So there's no escaping my name. But if you didn't know my name, just walking through every day, there really wasn't an issue. So it would be when the name is either on a paper or, you know, like at an airport. So like right after 9/11, for example, a lot of you guys probably don't remember this, but they shut the airports down. I think it was for 5 days. So there's not an airplane in the sky.
Wow.
Not one. And then DC in particular, I think it was almost 2 weeks before they reopened it. And I had to go there for work. And it was one of the first flights from Detroit to DC. And I remember, this is when like I kind of knew like the world had changed. There was only, I think, 5 or 7 people on the whole flight.
Wow.
And what I learned later, so I was dressed in a suit, business attire. I'll never forget it. There was a young lady, she was a flight attendant, and there was no one on the flight. So I had like the first seat. So she was sitting facing me where they sit in that chair. And she was nervous, and she just kept like fidgeting and looking at me. I wasn't even like thinking about it. I'm thinking, so I was just reading or whatever I was doing. And then I remember talking to my mom, and I'm like, you know, this happened. And she's like, you know, they have a list and names. She probably saw your name and was thinking, you know, so I kind of knew right then and there. And then that's when you guys probably don't remember this. You weren't allowed to get out of your seat.
Even to use the bathroom?
Even to use the bathroom.
Wow.
Taking off the first 10 minutes and landing the first, or 10 minutes into landing. They said, if you got to use, go do it now, because you can't get out of your seat. So like those were little things that happened. And then, like I said, at that point in my career, I was, you know, very idealistic. I mean, I am still to some extent, but a whole lot more. And I was an activist. I wanted to, like on a personal level, I went to Dearborn High, class of 91, at a time where there was 4 or 5 Arabs. Like that's unthinkable, where they didn't know what hummus was. I'm not joking. You know, like when we had cultural exchanges, they really didn't know what that was, and they loved it. So I wanted to take like what I knew. I grew up in predominantly at the time Caucasian, West Dearborn. I had a good experience, to be honest with you. I had a very good experience. My classmates, you know, the overwhelming majority of them were great. A lot of them I still talk to. You know, a lot of them, you know, reached out to me. So I wanted to like do what I could to not be afraid. So I got involved with different organizations, and I ended up like speaking at college campuses all over the country. You know, at that age, I went to like, I remember Nebraska, Notre Dame, Harvard, like everywhere. I was on a speaking tour in my free time, and I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to present that we are just like everybody else. You know, we eat apple pie, we watch baseball.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to, from a legal point of view, at the time they were trying to pass the Patriot Act, which maybe you guys heard of, maybe you haven't, but you know, it's like this overwhelming legislation that gives the government broad authority to intrude on civil rights. And I wanted to like kind of put it out there why that's not good for us as Americans in general, and how it can be abused. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And if I talk too much, cut me off.
No, you're fine. I'm just looking at the
Okay.
questions and seeing.
Whenever
Sure.
you're finished, I have a question, but go ahead. finish.
Okay, yeah, and then I can just stop here. And then my work, you know, kind of shifted like significantly. Like the first big thing that happened, I remember it was December of 2001. And Michigan was the first state that got these letters. The federal government sent letters to all of these people. They weren't Americans. They were like student visas and other visas. And they said, we want to interview you. It's voluntary. And that was a whole big controversy, because this is the first time in recent history, at least, not in American history, recent history, where they were sending a letter that was really targeting just all Muslim
Certain,
people.
yeah.
And everybody was interviewed by at least 3 people that made up a task force called the Joint Terrorism Task Force. So I had like an FBI agent, it had the Secret Service agent or an IRS agent, an immigration agent, and sometimes a local police officer. It was the JTTF.
Wow.
And honestly, these are some of the digitals that I wish the media, maybe I'll find a way to get the old media into the new, but the questions they asked people, besides the point that the policy was bad, they asked the most ignorant, asinine questions. Like you couldn't even.
Let's hear some.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Now I'm curious.
Some of them were like, I'm kind of paraphrasing, it's not exact. Like, do you pray a lot? Do you know people who go to the mosque too much? Some of them were, one of them was, do you support Osama bin Laden? I mean, just think about what a stupid question that is. Because if somebody did, I don't think they're going to say yes. December of 2001.
Yeah, I was gonna say December. You said it was, so it was like a couple months after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you got to understand like the climate of the country. So I always tell people, and I think a lot of people my age and older would agree with this. Dearborn was safe. You felt safe in Dearborn. You just felt like you were with your people, and we know we're not like that. So there's nothing to be afraid of among ourselves. But a lot of people will tell you it got uncomfortable, when you ventured out.
Oh, 100%.
A lot of people, and there's a lot of stories like that, like our practice at the time, like I said, I was a newer lawyer. There were a lot of people that got fired, we're downsizing or whatever. And it was kind of obvious what it was. There was a lot of nasty things happening. Women that wear hijab, people would spit at them. It was regular occurrence, to be honest with you. But it was always safe here, but it wasn't just a one-off, like nationally.
Yeah.
The pockets
The hate
of
attacks.
the pockets of the small Muslim communities, or the ones that didn't have any, those are the ones that we heard a lot of things. And obviously people were physically attacked and even killed. So, I mean, I can go into tons of different areas, but like at the time in my life when it happened, it was bad. And I'll be honest with you, it's so much better now. Like I feel like, a lot of the negative that's happened, like in 20 years, a lot of the myths have been deconstructed. We have new problems in this country now. There's infighting that didn't exist back then. Back then, all the people that are fighting now politically, they were like, Muslims are bad.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
And it was bad. But I won't forget a lot of things that happened. Like, it's not everybody. Like looking back, I can make a judgment now. I feel like Americans in general, a lot of things that happen that are bad are out of super ignorance and fear. And once you can bring down the fear and you can educate them, like they're inherently good people all over the world that try to do the right thing. They're trying to do charity. But if they have those two things especially, and they have a high level of it, and we still have a lot of that in this country, then it's not good for any group of people.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like, Ahmad, you kind of had the same idea of making the world understand that we're similar with your book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why I came out with the book. Right after college, I wrote about, it was called Life Behind the Scenes. And so it was basically about, a Muslim person living in America post September 11, 2001 era. And the whole idea was we're ordinary people, like kind of just share a story of person that's just ordinary person. We play football, we love sports, this is what we do. And so that definitely was what driven me, and what drove me to write the book was just making sure people understood that, like, hey, this is who we are, and that, we're no different than anyone else. So, Saad, I know you had a question as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what was the difference between like security in the airport prior to that? Was there a difference?
Oh my God. I was telling my nieces actually on the way here. So I got to take you back a little ways to give you the full context. If you go back to the late 80s, you young people, hold on to yourself for a minute. People could smoke on an airplane.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe.
no, there was a smoking section.
There was. So if you come from that context and you move forward, what changed after 9/11, the biggest thing is, let's say you and I, Omar, are flying to California. No, I'm flying to California, and you're dropping me off. You could park your car right in front of the airport. You can go with me all the way to the gate.
Yep.
And then
I remember that too.
You can give me DAP, and I'm on my way to California. that's the number one thing that changed. Their TSA came in, and if you didn't have a ticket, you weren't crossing. But then they had all of these just ridiculous, like supposedly computerized algorithm on, they call them selectees, and you get extra security checks, and it caused the lines to back up. Before, I tell people, we all live in Dearborn area. It takes 15 minutes to get to the airport. I would literally leave 30, 40 minutes before the flight was going to take off. Just imagine that.
Just because you get there and you just walk right in.
Yeah, that's it. You just go. And honestly, if you read into the security before 9/11, it was designed. There was a metal detector, but really it was only designed, and this is the weakness in the American security system before 9/11. It was designed to stop the crazy. That's it. It was designed to stop a guy who had a mental health problem that wanted to come in and just shoot or kill people. It was not designed to do anything else. And that got exploited. And, they overhauled everything. Then you had the X-ray machine to go through your bag, and then there's no water.
Any liquid.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So it completely changed. And then they used to have a threat level. So they would get it from our intelligence agencies. They'd say, hey, there's chatter overseas. The threat level is 5, which is the highest. So then security lines were 3 hours to get through. Then they'd bring it down and say, everything's okay. They'd be a little bit better. Then sometimes you can bring water. Sometimes you can't. I mean, it was a disaster. And then every once in a while, something would happen. I don't know if you guys remember the shoe bomber. I'm pretty sure he landed in Detroit, actually, where he snuck bomb material in his shoe.
So now we got to take off our shoes because of him.
Exactly. So there's a lot of things. Yeah, really, there's a lot of things that kind of evolved over the years. And now I think it's kind of more streamlined the last few years. It's, put your stuff in the bin and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But those days, you have human beings administering it. So you had people that were nasty to people who were outwardly Muslim.
I'm going to take back. I'm not going to lie. When I am in the airport, and she knows this, I have really bad anxiety just because I wear the scarf.
Yeah.
I know I'm not carrying anything or anything like that, and I'm following the rules, but I'm just like, oh my God, but what if? So I get anxious. So yeah.
I can understand.
When did the money thing come along? Was that always something, or did that also happen after September 11th as well?
You can't carry a certain amount.
Yeah, you can't carry a certain amount of money in traveling overseas.
So there's two parts to it. So the misconception that people have is that you can't carry a certain amount. That's not true. You can carry.
You have to document it though.
You have to claim it.
Claim it.
So you can carry $1 million in cash if you want, or bring in $1 million in cash. Nope. The only issue is that you have to declare it. So you have to document that you are carrying it. If you don't, that's when you've committed a crime on paper. When I say on paper, I say that because it's kind of like speeding. They can let you go if they want. It's discretionary, because I know a lot of people that get caught that get their money back. But so that's one issue, is that the law hasn't changed on that. It's always been the same, that you have to declare, but they enforced it more strongly back then. And the second thing about money is that in the war on terrorism, and at that time, as a practicing lawyer, I got a ton of cases that dealt with money. Like the Yemeni community deals with the hawala system, which no one cared about. No one said a thing about back before 9/11. And all of a sudden that became super scrutinized, and people were charged with offenses like, unlicensed check cashing business. That was actually a crime on the books back then. I don't know if it's still on the books. You had to register that you're a money check cashing business. And it was a way, in my opinion, to send a chill to people who engaged in those kind of activities that aren't bad on the face, but there was a need to know, where is this money going?
Yeah. There was actually a hold during a certain time too, where they weren't allowing any money being sent.
Yep. And then there was I represented a group of very successful, I'll just call them businessmen, in the county above us, where they were very charitable.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like they made a lot of money and they were very good about zakat. They would take out their calculator and they would write like an odd number of a check, like just as an example, $432,078.
T.
Yeah. So these people got a knock on the door from the federal government, and it was to charity, you know, and they wanted to just ask them questions. They bring them before a grand jury, you know, and these group of guys, they just, you know, when you have that type of belief, like my client told the guy, he said, it's a burden. I can't wait to give the money, you know, and I just remember that agents like looking like, you know, why, you know, and he's like, it's an obligation. This is what we do. You know, but when they did it like year after year, like these guys were smart and they realized like this is a way to like, from their point of view, to stop us from giving charity, you know, and we're not going to do it. You know, so they ended up setting up their own and just keeping it more managed. Because the truth is that if you give to an organization that gives money overseas, do you really know exactly where it's going?
Yeah.
You know, so you know there's a lot of things like that happened that you know were unfortunate.
I know you probably brought that up because when we were kids, my dad kind of sometimes would separate when we were going overseas to Yemen. He would give us all an amount to carry. But it was more of like, how can you document that when it's like your cousin or your neighbor sending money back home to their family and they just want you to, you know, it's a trusted person to
carry.
Send, yeah. So
And not only
I remember that vividly,
but also
carrying-
even if you do document it, I heard they still question you. Like they can still pull you
Oh,
to
yeah.
the side and question. That's happening a lot too, by the way. That's what I heard. Like
oh,
people,
100%.
Yeah, like people. Like that happens.
So
Yeah.
when we came back, I'm very honest, and I was young. Okay, so when we went to Yemen back in 08, you know, I got married that summer, and then when we get married, we get gold.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever. On our way back, before we landed, they gave us a paper to fill out and sign or whatever. And I was honest. I said everything that I had.
Yeah.
And my dad was Allah yarhamah. He was the type of person that first one out the plane, first one out. And they pulled us to the side. He wanted to kill me. He's like, why would you write it down? You know what? Because then now it gets taxed. And because we bought it from Yemen. Like, it was just this whole thing. But yeah, they do that.
Yeah, they do that. And what I'll tell you is that it's still the best way to do it. Yeah. So let me back up for a second because this is something important for everybody. Yeah. Your rights, the easiest way to describe it, your rights are minimized, they're diminished at any international crossing. So when an airplane pulls up and they connect the door to it so you can walk, that's considered international crossing. That's why they're waiting for you there. It's not until your feet get inside. So there's less rights for you. They're actually allowed to look through your phone. They're allowed to ask you these questions where if you were inside of America, they'd have to have probable cause.
Wow.
So that's why with immigration, when you're crossing a border, the Supreme Court, the law is that you have less rights. They have more rights to question you. But with that being said, honestly, the advice I would give people, the best advice is to just tell them the truth, that I got this from my neighbor. It's $8,000 and I'm carrying it to her niece in Yemen. And you guys know why. We trust each other and the banking system's not reliable. Let them ask a million questions. There's nothing they could do because you declared it.
Right.
You know, where people get in trouble is they're carrying $50,000 and their tax returns they make $7,000 a year and they're on welfare. You know, I mean, that you know, that creates a whole nother set of problems. But if you're on the up and up, I mean, it's your money, you worked for it. Tell them the truth. If you got a question or two or an attitude, you know, just keep it moving.
I love it. I love this conversation where it's going. We're going to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our second sponsor of today, which is Juice Box and Hamtramck. Shout out to Hakeem and everybody over there at Juice Box. That's not just Juice Box and Hamtramck. They got one in Dearborn coming soon, inshallah. So shout out to Juice Box. We're going to run that ad. We hope that you're enjoying this conversation at home and learning something. And we will continue on with the conversation afterwards. All right, Yusuf, I want you to envision this with me, okay? Imagine you just had a long day at work and all you want is a nice, cool, refreshing drink to top it all off. Do you know where you stop by at, Yusuf?
It's got to be Juice Box.
It's definitely Juice Box. If you're looking for a place with the best smoothies, milkshakes, ice cream, cereal bars, and slushies, then Juice Box is your one-stop shop. You can try things like their Biscoff or Nutella shakes, crepes, watermelon blasts, strawberry burst, or mango smoothies. And if you're looking for a place to hang out, they have a comfortable outdoor patio/courtyard area that you and your friends can enjoy while trying those delicious drinks. So be sure to stop by Juicebox. They have a Hamtramck location right there on Joseph Campo, with more locations coming soon. You'll be sure to leave there with a big smile on your face. You'll also be able to order your drinks from the new Juicebox app, which will also be coming soon. It will be downloadable on all of your smartphone devices. Shout out to Mo, man. Great guy over here. We appreciate him for being here today. So, we kind of dived in, had a great convo about, some of the stuff that, happening in the airports and stuff like that. But overall, Mo, do you feel like the discrimination towards Muslims and stereotypes and even racism, do you feel like that still, I know you said it's better, a lot better, but do you still think it kind of goes on till this day?
I mean, there's no doubt it goes on. Like, we live in the real world. I think it's way better. I think a big part of it is that, our community has advanced so much in 20 years. They're more educated. They're more successful. And then, we've got 20 years plus since the incident where other Americans who weren't sure have watched this community flourish. I mean, the reality is that in America, there's a 1 in 4 chance everywhere in America that you go see your primary care physician and they're Muslim. We're overrepresented by 100-fold as physicians.
Yeah, can we get a round of applause for that?
Yeah, that's a good start.
That was nice.
For better or for worse, because some people might see that like it's starting to get, people got to start
branching
out to different places, but definitely something to be proud of, especially where we came, where we all come from and stuff like that. So.
No, exactly. And then the other part of it that I think is great to watch, and I think one of the biggest things is that if you go back to the 90s and even after September 11th, these people oppressed their women.
Yeah.
That was that stereotype exists, but those walls have been knocked down. I mean, look, you're here with your sisters on a podcast, right? Yeah. I drove in here with my nieces. The reality is you can't take a bad apple. We encourage our women. We honor our women. They are the leader of the family. They're the backbone of the family. And I don't want to get into all the religious connotations, but we know where women are in our society, in our life. And now the outside world, I think, is starting to see, okay, well, that bad advertisement, no, I got Muslim neighbors, they're good people. Or we have more and more famous Muslims. We have Habib.
Yeah.
Like, he's such a great representation of Islam.
He is.
Humble. He's a badass. He hard work, discipline. We've got just so many of them out there. We've got basketball players, we've got football players, we've got entertainers. So that all of that's helped, because if you go back 20 something years, all we had to put out to the world was terrorist. Yeah. Right? According to, the way the agenda was pushed in the media, at least, that's it. That's all you had.
For sure.
So I think it's better and getting better.
What are your thoughts on that, Sarah? Do you feel like it's the same?
I'm going to make a comment on the last thing he said too. And I think a lot of people forget that, like, I believe math came from an Islamic country, and we've given them so many things that, coffee or whatever, we've given them so many things. In America, it's all mixed. Everybody brought something with them. And people like to blame others. Like, for instance, like, even though I think this is so corny, but like how everyone hated people that are Chinese because they're the ones that brought COVID-19 and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's gonna get played out. It's gonna get boring. It's gonna be on to the next person. But I am thankful of how things are going right now and stuff like that. I'm really happy that we're branching out too. But of course, it could get better, because honestly, racism could even happen in your own race.
Yes.
So, that's a whole nother topic.
That is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
A topic that I feel like we gotta definitely address this year and this season.
Yeah.
Even though people are you gotta get the right people. People are uncomfortable to talk about it, but I really do want to have a topic about that, because that's ridiculous. But again, like we said, it's another topic for another day. But do you feel like it's gotten better though over the years?
Yeah,
Muslims?
100%. Just like you said, the rise with the Muslim women, the Arabic women as a whole, it's been beautiful to watch and to see. But also wherever there, like you said before, wherever there's fear and ignorance, that is when it comes back. And there is areas where Muslims are the minorities, where people are still afraid and still, think racism still happens.
You know, again, this is how sheltered I was. Like, I literally get, till today, it's weird. Like, I get so shocked of how many Muslims there are in, like, different states of the United States. Like, before, I used to really think it's only Michigan, like, here and there, New York, here and there. But knowing how many Muslims we have all around, like, honestly, it's taken over. Yeah. I think Chicago is, it's literally, Islam is becoming the number one religion in there. And I just, like, it astonishes me. It astonishes me, and it makes me really happy.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like a lot of us also know our rights now. Yeah. I mean, there's still a large sum of people that a lot of the times get taken advantage of because they don't know, especially families that are not, born and raised here, or they just recently came and they're refugees or whatever. But once, you get up there, your rights, I feel like it's a lot less, they can't get away with a lot.
Yeah.
So people are held accountable.
Yeah. We have, you guys know this. Look how many young lawyers we have. We have elected officials. We have people holding public office all over the place. I don't think we had any back then. If we did, I'm sorry if I missed them, but now it's normal. Now it's normal. I mean, we had a guy run for governor that was a legit possibility, and obviously about the local candidates that have won mayor and Congress and the state seats. So that also changes the image, right? You have a mayor of a big city who's an Arab American.
And he's doing great.
He is doing great. And for the rest of the people who aren't sure, he's doing a great job, and he happens to be a Muslim. Those things all help. Like, they go a long way to normalizing us for people who are they have a question mark. They're just not sure.
And it's... Go ahead,
I was going to say, speaking of help, you might have to help Mayor Hamid with her jump shot, by the way. We've been struggling the last two games. No, but go ahead.
No, see, I lost my train of thought because that was actually funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing? All right, because I'm going to go up to you with the next question.
It's fine.
All right, so the next question is, for people out there that are listening and may not know Muslims really well, what's one thing you would want them to know about Muslims? Like, what's one thing that you feel like they should take away about the religion that we follow?
We are the religion of peace. Ask questions. Don't assume. I think that's the biggest thing that I would ever want to let the people know is ask questions. I'm pretty sure any of us would be more than willing to share. And there's no stupid question. And a lot of the times people would come up to me and be like, oh, this might be, this or that. You might get offended. But I'm like, no, honestly, if it's an honest question and you're coming at me with a good heart, or to any Muslim, we're an open book.
How about you, Sarah?
I would say that there's a reason for everything that we do, especially when it might look like we're doing something ridiculous or whatever it may be. There's a reason behind it. And when you ask and, we have a reason, whether it's, it's a test for us, whether it's us, doing whatever it may be. And we have literally a perfect way to live. And if you if you just, give it a shot or give it a chance to look at it, you would understand too. And a lot of people a lot of people will start studying the Quran or whatever it may be, and then they start realizing oh, this makes sense. So, yeah.
Before I pass it to Mo, he sent me a video earlier today, right?
Yeah.
And it's of his niece. And your niece, not one, maybe their sister? Is that what
they're
it is?
sisters.
They're sisters. Or what's her name, by the way?
The video I sent you is from Sada.
Sada.
Where's Sada? I want to see Sada.
Sada, come on.
Oh, this is Sada when she was younger.
She was younger. This is a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
Her brother.
Okay. So
but it was just an organic video that ended up going viral. Mufti Mink posted it.
Oh, really?
I seen it.
Oh, okay. So, Sada, I don't know if you want to come on. Is she hiding?
Sada, you can come. She's not afraid.
Okay, she's not afraid. There you go.
She's a great speaker as well.
She's a great speaker.
I just want to say I really like your name.
Yeah, they're
really
all
unique.
Sadas. All right. So shout out to Sada over here. We're gonna listen to this while you're at home. Listen to the speech she gives her brother.
No matter what happens, nobody can make you do something you don't want to do. Nobody can change your actions. Nobody can tell you what to think and what you can be. If you're poor, just see something happens. That's Allah to all of us, and you're poor. Just because you're poor and you want to be something so big, you dream of being a doctor, you dream of being a lawyer, a president, which can't happen. It's all in your will and in your heart. Whatever you want to do can come true if you just believe in yourself. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you to the right path if you do what you're supposed to.
Look at that. Go ahead and give that a round of applause. Look at that. Shout out to Sada. How old was Sada how old was you, Sada?
She was 7.
7.
She's 10 now.
Oh,
Nice.
And that's her older sister, Iman. I think she could legitimately be the next president of the United States. I'm not
okay,
sure.
Iman.
Inshallah.
Yeah, Iman,
I'll be
come on,
rooting
hurry.
Hey, you
For
gotta
you.
come over here too, man.
Yeah.
Stand for a second. Come on.
You just want to wave at the camera?
How you going to be the president if you're afraid to stand?
It's all right. We don't want to put her in a
They
pressure
just finished
situation.
practice, and they're probably like,
Yeah.
So, great speech, by the way. And you said Mufti Mink shared it, by the way?
He did. I'm not sure how he got it, but he shared it and it went crazy. My friends in Dubai, one of them sent it to me. There's a different time zone. He's like, man, look at this girl. Can you believe it?
Oh my God,
And I was
that's so
like, that's
funny.
my niece. Like, imagine how the world is so small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for
That's
sure,
what the
man.
internet
That's a
did.
very, very inspiring words. But we're going to pass it on to you now, Mo.
Yes.
So what's one thing, if there is one thing, what would you want people to know about Muslim people?
I think one of the stereotypes that hasn't been knocked down properly yet is that it's not a religion of compulsion. So a lot of people still think that we force people to do things, that we force people to wear a hijab, we force people to pray, we force people. That could be the furthest thing from the truth. The last time I checked, and this is no disrespect to other religions, I don't see Muslims knocking on people's doors with pamphlets every day, even when you tell them not to go away and come 100 times a day. We don't do that. But anybody who wants to come to the mosque, who wants to ask a question, as the sister said, I find all Muslims, even ones that aren't the most devout or practicing, they're welcoming. They'll guide you towards resources. They'll give you a tour. That's one area I think that in terms of educating the public at large, it would be that there is no compulsion in our religion, and you accept it, you gain a whole bunch of new brothers and sisters.
Go ahead and give that another round of applause, Yusuf, man.
I do have a question about Sada.
Yeah.
Her being that young and having those words. You guys normally talk to the kids like that way, or is this a...
Honestly, we don't. So Sada and Iman's mother is my sister. She ran ADC, Attorney Mohammed Abdrabboh, for a while, which was a civil rights organization. Their father is a physician, mashallah, and he's a great example because he spent so much of his time, even when he was before medical school and during and now, giving charity. So in that household, from a young age, and hopefully when they come to their uncle's house and their grandmother's house, it's a environment of be what you can be, do what you want to do. The sky's the limit. We're Muslims, and that's going to guide you and that's going to help you, but the world is yours. And that's why that was just a conversation that my sister happened to capture, like totally organic. There's tons of them that happen every day.
Yeah.
I love it.
And it sounds like they also know to always give back whenever you have the chance to.
Always. So these two did Gatorade for Gaza. Can I tell you a
that's
quick
cute.
story about them? Did you guys
for
see
sure.
that?
For sure.
No, I did not.
So
see
it
that,
started off,
unfortunately.
we play a basketball in my brother's house. It started off with, I think Iman made a sign. It was during the Gaza, one of the many Gaza bombings. They wanted to help the kids. So just the 10 or 12 guys, it started off where they had a little sign, come on guys, when you're not playing, pay some money. So they realized they're getting 20s for a Gatorade. So then they got me to say, let's move it down the street. Let's put it in front of your house. So I posted it on Facebook, and now you got 30, 40, 50 people coming. And then we took it to a parking lot. I don't remember. They made like 12 grand or something.
Wow.
Or maybe it was
give 'em-
more. I don't even remember.
Go ahead and give them that a round of applause.
So it was just them two. And then somebody doubled it.
Oh,
Somebody said, whatever they make, I'll match it.
I'm getting emotional. How cute.
Yeah, it was cool. And then they did it all themselves.
That's
People
awesome.
don't understand what this does for younger kids. Like when they see
important.
the community supporting them and believing in them,
Yeah.
it just I don't know. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about. I do want to say, Emel, my wife, was commenting, first of all, during the airport thing. She said, think the airports treat you better if you have kids with you. All right, she put that out there. And then she put, mashallah, Allahumma barik, when mentioning, that was when I was playing Sada's recording. Believe it or not, we're going to run one more ad, and then we're getting down to our Motivate Me 313 segment where we want to get some advice from you before we shut this down into the final words as well. So, Yusuf, let's go ahead and give Hanley International Academy a shout out. We appreciate Hanley International Academy, the school that Miss Abbott and I used to work at, but we still got love for them and we appreciate
it's always
them.
home.
Yeah, it's always going to be home. So shout out to Hanley International Academy, and then we're going to close out the show. So we appreciate Hanley. Yusuf, you seem like a pretty smart man. What elementary/middle school did you get promoted from?
The one and only Hanley International Academy.
Hanley International Academy is a school that treats every student and staff like their own family. It's even in their vision statement, educating your child like our own. Their location is 2400 Denton Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. Their phone number is 313-875-8888. The academics there are great. The athletics there are great. Thank you to the staff and administrators at Hanley for educating our leaders of tomorrow.
I think there's a lot of different areas. I think you should take on some of those hard topics.
For sure. Definitely I want to. And I think that was, my goal was I didn't want to jump right in because who are we to do that? Kind of let people know that this is kind of what we do. And then definitely want to dive into some of those more harder topics, especially in the community that needs to be discussed.
For sure.
So shout out to Mo, man. Did an awesome job today. I felt like, if you had a class on you want to learn about what happened, fifth grade teacher, they were not alive during this time, let them watch it.
I'm not going to lie. I feel just a tad more bit confident of being a Muslim.
Yeah, for sure. So shout out to Mo. And if you didn't feel confident, he'll defend you, by the way. Shout out to Mo. All right? He'll do that.
It works both ways. I'm confident because of you guys.
There you go. So you should make sure the camera's on him when he says this answer, because this is the clip that we typically pull out, even though I might pull out your answer by what you said about Muslims was a great one as well. Thanks. But my question to you, Mo, is what advice do you have for someone who may be stereotyped or discriminated against because of their race or religion? What would you tell them?
Well, I would first remind them always that you have rights, okay? And in my opinion, not just as a lawyer, but as a citizen and even as a Muslim, you have to enforce your rights. And even if it gets uncomfortable, you have to do it for the next person. Because when you're being discriminated against by, let's say, person A, if you just go away quietly and you don't report it, that person's going to victimize another person. They're going to be racist toward another person. So the first thing is you got to know you have rights. There are resources everywhere online. There are lawyers everywhere that you can get a free consultation with. Most lawyers give you a free consultation and will advise you of what your rights are. And you may have a case. And you should, in my opinion, pursue the case, because if you don't fight that good fight where you've been wronged, and you don't need to be a lawyer, you feel it in your gut that this doesn't feel right, this wasn't right, you have to pursue that. You make yourself stronger. You have kids that are watching you. You have siblings that are watching you. And they can either watch you fight that fight that is a good fight and a noble fight, or they're going to watch you crumble and walk away. And let's just be honest, our religion's a religion of peace, but our religion is not a turn the other cheek religion either. You have rights, and you have a right to defend yourself. And I always encourage people to do that within the bounds of the law.
Shout out to Mo. Definitely another round of applause.
Thank you.
Such an awesome job, man. Honestly, this is, I had a vision of hopefully how the show would go, and this is exactly, if not, it kind of surpassed the expectation, because I wanted people to know, man, we were just talking about it before the show, there's a whole generation that was not alive during this time that are affected probably by it till this day today, and they don't know why. And this is kind of one of the main, I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's definitely one of the main reasons why, because I think we can all agree that life definitely changed, maybe for everyone, after the September 11, 2001 attacks.
Yeah, no doubt. And it'll be, just like the internment of Japanese, there's a good 5 to 10 year period after 9/11 that's going to be a stain on American history, where They sent people to spy and inside of mosques. They did a lot of things that history will judge. And just like a lot of the other things that happened bad historically, a couple generations later, we say, well, that was terrible. But in the moment, what we can learn from history is that, again, when people are scared and when they're ignorant, that's when these things happen. And as the targeted community, you're scared, but you can either be scared or you can go out. If every person would go out and educate, I think that there's a less probability that happens. But it's easier said than done in the moment, because those were some scary times. I'm not going to lie to you. It was just scary.
Yeah, because you really didn't know what the end result would be.
Nobody knew.
Yeah, for sure. Final word, Sada. What do you got to say, Sada?
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. This was amazing and a really big eye opener.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Likewise, I always like to hear everyone's perspective, because we all have a different one. We all add to it to make a nice pie.
Yeah, exactly. I bet it was your final words, final comment.
No, it's very important to recognize what happened and teach the newer generation of why certain things are happening. Because if not, they're just going to do things just because,
Exactly.
Or follow things just because everybody else is following it.
Yeah.
So it's good to know.
Mo, thank you again for everything. I appreciate it. I don't know if
Thanks
you have
for
any
having me.
final comments and final words before I shut this down. Anything you want to add on or say?
Honestly, I want to thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. You gave me the opportunity to hopefully give people something to think about. But I also want to encourage you guys. I did go online. I don't have a lot of time. I'm a different generation, so I'm not online a lot. But I'm very encouraged by what you guys do. I hope you continue to do it. And I hope that you guys one day challenge Joe Rogan.
On the show, or just to talk about numbers wise, our reach. There you go.
Because
there you go.
He's got influence.
No, he for sure does. He
Doesn't
for sure does.
Put the money aside.
Yeah.
He's got influence, man. He can sway an election.
He does. And honestly, Joe Rogan is one of the few people that I actually inspired, me in trying to get this going, is because I seen, like you said, the influence that he had just by starting something like that. And so he does a great job too. Yeah. So shout out to Joe. Thank you everybody that watch or will eventually watch. Again, this was season 2, episode 3 of Motivate Me 313. I'm sorry, season 3, episode 2. Got the numbers switched up on that one. This is season 3, episode 2 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We'll be back again next week, Tuesday, probably at 7 o'clock. That's what the guest is working out for the guest. So we'll definitely see how that goes. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors again: Specialty Medical Center, BC Adhesives, the Qahwah House, Hanley International Academy, Juice Box, and the Balkan House in Hamtramck and Ferndale. We appreciate them and their support as always. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Oz Media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Oz Media. You can listen to the show later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation. This is what we do. We try to, take a topic and then kind of expand on it and just have a nice, conversation with one another and hopefully educate you, and you maybe learn 1 or 2 things at the end of it. Shout out to Yusuf in the back, always doing his thing. He's about to close us out. We appreciate you all.
I do want to say we might have to have Iman and Sada on here.
I think it's a great idea.
Oh,
you guys will be
when they're
surprised.
ready.
You guys will be surprised.
When
They're
they're-
very insightful for that age, especially.
So we have a movement podcast show that's actually focused on the youth. We go live on Saturdays. So I have my brothers and nephews on the show, and we try to get people in the community. So maybe we can work that out where they can come on and inspire the younger generation as well. So you guys are doing an awesome job raising your kids as well and everyone else. So we appreciate all the work that you do, Mo. And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next week. Take easy, be easy, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.